there, nation, and welcome to the show where we help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander Cheapskate, and welcome to Way of the Underhive, your ultimate guide to Games Workshop's gritty and immersive skirmish game, Necromunda. Whether you're brand new to the dark depths of Hive Primus, or a veteran looking to sharpen your skills, this series is your go-to resource for mastering all aspects of the game. From gang warfare to campaign strategies, we've got you covered. And on today's episode, we are actually making a video that is dedicated to playing a Helmawr Outcast gang for your games of Necromunda. And in this video, we'll give you a variety of different starting rosters. We'll explain the playstyle that you'd use in order to play this gang on the tabletop. We'll also talk about some rules that we're going to make some adjustments for, so that way you can actually include a Helmawr Outcast gang in your campaigns. And these rules will be very helpful for arbitrators who want to look for a way to incorporate this faction into your future campaigns as well. And I will also explain the justifications about why I made the kind of decisions that I did when it came to actually utilizing these delegations from Helmawr. And before we go any further, I do want to take this time to actually give a special thanks to one of my viewers. Cameo Chris is the name of the channel. This YouTuber actually left a comment in one of my videos asking about why can't we not play a Helmawr gang, and he actually got me thinking and brainstorming about why don't we actually use Helmawr Outcast in games of Necromunda, and wanted to see a lot of information about that. So that's the reason why I decided to make this video, in order to answer that question and also to create some starting rosters that you could use in your campaigns as well. So Cameo Chris, if you are watching, thank you so much for giving us the idea by putting it down in the suggestion box. And speaking of which, because this video is a little bit more of a deeper dive, I do have timestamps in the description box down below. That way you can click and navigate to the part of the video that interests you the most. So that being said, let's go ahead and talk about playing Helmawr in your games of Necromunda. So first of all, let's talk about the issue of playing a Helmawr Outcast gang in your games of Necromunda. So Cameo Chris, if you're wondering why this was such a huge issue before and why don't you really see a lot of rosters built about it, is because the issue with Helmawr are the rules. Now, narrative all aside, Helmawr is horrible in terms of the narrative, but the real specific issue is there's no real solid rule base in order to play this Outcast gang. And the reason why is because every single noble house gang in Necromunda, in terms of Outcasts anyways, they use a delegation as the core for making their gangs. Each of the great noble houses, like House Hive, for example, House Graham, they all have delegations that were actually created in the Book of the Outcast supplement that came out a couple of years ago. So you had like a leader type fighter as well as like a ganger type fighter that made up that delegation. Now when it came to Helmawr, they didn't really make a delegation rule for that. You do get what's known as the Enforcer Bodyguards delegation if you decide to ally yourself with the Imperial House, and those guys are quite powerful, but there is no real official rule set about what those fighters would actually be rated at in terms of credit value to include inside your gangs. And so because of that, it's been kind of difficult. At the same time, if you wanted to also use Lady Haeras as your leader of your Outcast gang, there's some kind of weird disconnect with the rules, because technically she's a house agent, but according to the Outcast gang rules, you can take house agents as your leader if you want to. It becomes a question of what is the credit cost for that fighter, and opens up a whole slew of issues when you do this. So the best suggestion I would actually make for that kind of situation is you should always check your arbitrator first to see if your arbitrator will allow you to include this type of gang in a campaign. And if your arbitrator is decent enough to actually make rules for this, and actually takes the initiative to do that, then you might be lucky to play this game. Now, if your arbitrator does it, because let's face it, people are busy, they don't have time to think about, including gangs that there are no official rules for. If they don't want to include it, they're totally justified to make that decision as well, because, they're the ones running the campaign. Now, I actually like this idea of including this in a campaign, so I decided to try to create some rules in order to help out any players or any arbitrators that would be really interested in actually using this gang in your campaign. So that being said, let's go ahead and talk about the ways that I've kind of adjusted things a little bit, so that way it makes it an easier approachability for players to approach arbitrators about playing this type of gang. Alright, so let's talk about the Enforcer Bodyguard delegation that you would get normally from the Alliance with Helmawr. You get two Paladin companions. These guys are pretty much rated at the same characteristics as Paladin sergeants. They have movement characteristic 5 inches, 4+ weapon skill, 3+ ballistic skill. They have 3 strength and toughness, 2 wounds apiece with 4+ initiative and 1 attack. They have 5+ leadership, 6+ cool, 6+ willpower, as well as 7+ intelligence. And you get 2 of these fighters inside the Enforcer Bodyguard delegation. Now, what's interesting about these characters, they do have some really good equipment. They have layered flak armor as well as armored undersuits, and when combined together, that gives them a 4-up armor save and a 3-up armor save against blast template attacks. And they're also equipped with the extremely powerful disintegration gun. Now, the disintegration gun is an extremely powerful special weapon that is dedicated to these fighters. It's got a 8-inch short range as well as a 24-inch long range. Now, you do suffer a -1 hit penalty at long range, so you'll be striking at ballistic skill 4, but it's strength 5 with -3 AP, 2 damage, and it's got a 6-up ammo save. Now, what makes this weapon even deadlier is that it's got rapid fire 1, so you can fire 3 of these things. And it's also got the sever trait as well, which means that if you roll a person, if you take up their wounds, they automatically go out of action with it. So it's a very powerful weapon. Now, it is kind of balanced with some additional weapon traits. First of all, it has the scarcity trait on the ammo roll as well, and it's also got the unstable trait too. So because of that, if you do fail your ammo roll, you could potentially use your Enforcer Bodyguard if that should happen. Now, they do have a backup weapon to stub gun as well as manacles because they are Paladin Enforcers. They also have the fearsome skill, which means your opponent must pass a willpower test in order to charge against you in close combat. And they also have the Overwatch skill as well, which also means that they can interrupt an enemy activation with a shooting attack, assuming of course that they haven't activated yet as well. Now, they also code 2 special rules. One's called Peerless Bodyguards as well as Helmawr's Protectors. Now, for the Peerless Bodyguard special rule, it reads that if the fighter the Paladin companions are assigned to is hit by a range attack, the controlling player may choose to transfer the hit and all of its effects onto a Paladin companion that's within 2 inches, which kind of makes sense because these guys are bodyguards, and it also makes sense to include this in a Helmawr Outcast gang as well. And they also have a special rule called Helmawr's Protectors, which reads that basically during the pre-battle sequence after the choose crew setup, the Paladin companions are assigned to protect a fighter of the allied gang's choice. So whatever leader you want them to protect, or any character for that matter, should be allowed to do so. Now, like I said before, there is no official rules for this delegation to be used as an Outcast gang because there is no credit value attached to these guys. So in order to help out a lot of arbitrators as well as players who want to play a Helmawr gang and use this delegation in their campaigns, I basically went with the cost that each of these Paladin companions cost 250 credits apiece for a grand total of 500 credits if you want to include both fighters with this delegation. And of course, it's going to trigger the balance bandwagon by making this suggestion as well. Now, of course, people are going to also freak out about that. Now, granted, there is no official rules for this, so this is completely unofficial. So you could argue that it shouldn't be allowed because there's nothing official about it. But if we're going with the rule of cool and you want to include a Helmawr Outcast gang in your campaigns, I think the 250 credit cost for each Paladin companion is actually very justified. Now, here's why that's the case. The reason why I think the 250 credits is very justified is because these Paladin companions are pretty much champion level fighters, right? So we're talking about fighters that cost anywhere between, let's say, 150 to 250 credits a piece, typically speaking, if you were to equip a normal champion with equipment and weapons and such. The way I viewed it as is I'm basically taking this integration gun and kind of treating it as an upgraded plasma gun is what I decided to do. I also added some more additional credit costs to these guys because you do have the special rules as well as the additional skills that these guys automatically come with. In all fairness, however, if you decide to take this delegation to make the core of your Outcast gang, you are spending a grand total of 500 credits to field just 2 fighters, which means that half of your gang's budget is going directly to these guys alone. And when you look at that in the sense of the power scale and the cost of what that power scale looks like, I think it's a very fair as well as justifiable cost for these 2 characters to be included in an Outcast gang, especially if you want to do it with the delegation. So for those members who are in the balance bandwagon freaking out about it, this is the rationale I came with the credit cost for these fighters. Now, let's continue to talk about this delegation because according to the delegation rules, you can also buy weapons equipment that's a representative of that delegation for your Outcast gang. First of all, these fighters, the Paladin companions, would be considered gang fighter X fighters. I thought giving them the ability to do group activation would make them a little too powerful, so I decided, you know what, these guys aren't the traditional champions. They are not actually leading anybody. Their whole job is to protect their clients and protect their assets. So because of that's what they're going to be doing, they're going to be protecting that individual. So because of that, they're just normal gang fighters. They're not giving out orders. They're protecting their clients. So these guys are just basic gang fighter X special rules attached to them. Now, you are allowed to purchase layered flak armor for your gang because you're allowed to do so with the weapons and equipment that normally in an outcast gang would be restricted to you, but because you're delegation, you do have access to this. And I decided to go with 20 credits for the layered flak armor. The reason why I chose that credit allowance is because that's what bad zone enforcers pay when they want to actually take layered flak armor for their fighters, so it seemed like a good justifiable cost. At the same time, outcast gangs under the House Helmawr could purchase magnicals for themselves at additional cost of 20 credits. I went with that total because you can actually pick this up from the trading post with the normal rules as well. However, I decided to actually put a little bit of a balancing mechanic where you cannot access the disintegration guns, all right? You only get the 2 disintegration guns. Those come with your Paladin companions, and those are the only guys who are going to be able to use those weapons. Now, I know some people might be arguing, well, Commander Cheapskate, wouldn't people be allowed to purchase disintegration guns? My answer would be no. The reason why is because you are an outcast gang, and you are an outcast gang for a reason. Something has happened to where you don't have the full support of House Helmawr anymore. And the only reason why you have your disintegration guns with you is because the Paladin companions who are protecting whatever leader you have in your gang, they're taking the weapons with them, and they're sticking with you because for XYZ reasons, they're still maintaining their loyalty to you. So because you're cut off from the noble house, you don't get access to those disintegration guns ever again. And I think that's a pretty fair balancing mechanic in my opinion. So for those people who are part of the balance bandwagon who want to freak out about this, chill out. Your fighters won't be able to purchase, your opponents won't be able to purchase additional disintegration guns. All they have is the ones that their Paladin companions are already carrying. Now, another issue, of course, with playing a House Helmawr Outcast gang is because you're an Outcast gang, you can actually take Dramatis Personae as your leaders. And if you wanted to actually do this narratively speaking, you want to play Lady Haera, the 13th daughter of Lord Helmawr, to be the outcast. I mean, after all, her character is literally an outcast in the story of the Aranthian succession in the overall narrative. So naturally, she'd be the leader of an Outcast gang if you wanted to field her on the tabletop. Now, the problem with playing this character is that there are 2 types of Lady Haera miniatures that are available both in miniature form as well as the rules. You have the normal Lady Haera, moments during the Aranthian succession where she's actually fighting in the Aranthian succession as well, and then you have the Verge of Lady Haera where she takes on a Scythian Spire suit and she's actually fighting in the Underhells of Hive Secundus. So the question becomes, which one do you actually want to use, and how you go about using this fighter to be the leader of your outcast gang. Now, in my opinion, regardless of which one you hire, you're going to take the starting cost of 200 credits. Now, why the 200 credits? The reason why is because they are house agents, and that's what they would be costing for the maximum cost you need to in order to get them to lead your character. And I agree with that, using that higher end cost for it, just because there is nothing in the rules about using them as outcast gang leaders and what they would actually be valued at. And this is where we get kind of in that gray area when it comes to outcast gangs. However, though, I think it's kind of a fair cost because if you decide to combine her with the Paladin companions, you're dropping 700 credits just on 3 fighters alone, and that kind of helps balance things as well. Now, when you decide to pick your archetype for your fighter, for your leader, my suggestion to you is actually take the Mastermind archetype, just because that's what Lady Haera is in the narrative of the story. She's scheming, she's plotting, she's making power moves. That's very much a Mastermind archetype in my opinion. You could use whatever archetype you'd like, of course, because it's your gang, but if you want to kind of stick kind of narratively, that's what I would go with. Which of course brings us to the very last balance bandwagon trigger warning for this video. Luckily there's only 2 of them this time around, just because I could hear the death-dying screams of balance bandwagon people complaining about the fact that you're using 200 credits to play one of these characters. Okay, now don't freak out though, because I do have a little bit more of a balancing mechanic there about which version of Lady Haera you should be able to use, and depending upon which campaign you're playing, and that's how I kind of balance it out. And like I mentioned before, yes, she's 200 credits, but if you decide to take the Paladin Companions delegation, you're talking about a huge point sink of 700 credits just for 3 fighters. That's more than, it's about 2/3 of your gang is being used with just these 3 fighters alone. So that's how we're going to kind of justify the reasoning behind the credit cost for these fighters. Now, as an arbitrator, I think it's very fair that you can actually specify which version of Lady Haera you're playing depending on what kind of campaign you're playing. For a couple of reasons. The one major reason why it kind of depends what campaign you're playing is because of where her character is like during the setting of that campaign. For example, if you're going to play in either an Underhive campaign with a typical Dominion campaign, or Law and Misrule campaign, or even an Outcast campaign, Or if you're playing in the Ash Waste or in the Aranthian Succession, you should only be allowed to take the normal Lady Haera character without the Spire suit. And the reason why is because in the Aranthian Succession story, she does not have a Spire suit during the entirety of that story. Okay, so she doesn't have access to those things. In fact, she doesn't get access to those things until the very end of the Aranthian Succession. So from a narrative standpoint, and as an arbitrator, you could argue that yes, you could play Lady Haera as a leader, but you can only do it for Underhive campaigns, Ash Waste campaigns, as well as the Aranthian Succession campaigns. That's the only way you can take her. Now, on the flip side, if you wanted to take her as the Spire, the Cynthian Spire hunting rig, you could take her for an Underhells campaign, because in that narrative and in that setting, that's exactly what she's done. She's put on a Spire hunting rig. She's down there in the depths of her brothers looking for this secret of power to help her kind of retake her throne again on Necromunda. So that narratively fits within that campaign setting, because that's what she's actually doing in the overall story. You could justify that she could possibly use the Spire hunting rig for part 3 of the Aranthian Succession. I could understand how people could actually make that argument, but like I said before, if you wanted to take it to your arbitrator, they'll have the final say on it. But if, for example, if a player was playing in my campaigns, I'd be like, yeah, you could take Lady Haera, the normal Lady Haera, for Underhive, Ash Waste, and Aranthian Successions, and if you're playing in the Underhells campaign of Hive Secundus, then you could take the Spire version of that fighter. And that's how basically I would justify that. So now that we actually have the rules put out of the way, let's talk about the overall narrative of what this Outcast gang is. Point blank, you're playing Lady Haera, who is currently on the run. As the 13th daughter of Lord Helmawr, she's basically did her little machinations and scheming and plotting to kind of take over Necromunda, which of course she did fail because the House Aranthian actually rose up from the ashes and managed to take control of the planet. So she is currently on the run as well. So and the way that this gang is going to be designed is that yes, she is on the run. She also has her Paladin companion bodyguards, because they will accompany her because they took an oath or programming or psychological conditioning or something. These guys are sticking with her to protect her. Now the rest of your gang is either one of two things. Either you can see them as like an entourage of servants. They were not originally meant for combat originally, but now they find themselves in the crosshairs, so now they have to step up and fulfill the roles of actually acting as bodyguards for Lady Haera. Or if you want to, you could also go the narrative choice that these are just hired mercenary scum that she just kind of had to hire on the fly with whatever money and resources she had on hand to recruit these people, because she needed, an entourage to protect her. Either one is perfectly fine, and I think that narrative would fit overall within the setting of Necromunda. So let's talk about the playstyle and how you would use this gang on the tabletop. Now, it is a pretty good balance of shooting between short as well as medium range. So what I mean by short medium range, I'm talking about anywhere between the 12 to 24 inch range. You don't have a lot of long range shooting that goes beyond the 24 inch range mark. That's for very specific reasons. That's because I built this roster to play in both the Ash Wastes as well as the Underhells or Underhive campaigns for the most part. You don't really get access to longer range shooting until we get the Aranthian Succession, just because we didn't have the credit cost to actually, purchase those longer range weapons. Like I mentioned before, we're spending 700 credits just on 3 fighters in your gang, so that's the main reason why. And speaking of that, Lady Haera as well as your 2 Enforcer bodyguards are the main killers in this group. They're the ones that are going to be putting a lot of the harm and doing a lot of the work and the fighting for your gang in order to make you victorious in your campaigns. The rest of the Outcast fighters in your gang, they're just the chaff. They're the guys who are basically the bullet sponges, kind of running interference, trying to secure flanks and protect your 3 main killers to get their job done. And they're doing a lot of the dying and taking the injuries and stuff because they want to protect your more valuable fighters as well. Think of this gang list as a real min to max build, where you have like very minimal fighters as well as very powerful maximum fighters. And it's about leveraging those 2 assets of your gang to achieve victory. And that's the best way to actually play this gang. If you are a very first time player, I would not recommend this list, just because it takes a lot of skill as well as a lot of experience with the rules in order to make this gang list work. But if you want to try it out, or if you're up for a challenge, by all means, do what you like. Alright, so let's talk about this game. This game is called The Bloody Decree. This roster is going to be a 1,000 credit starting roster for your games that are taking place in the Underhive as well as the Ash Waste of Necromunda as well. Once again, this is going to be a House Helmawr Outcast gang at 1,000 credits. And your leader will be Lady Haera, 13th daughter of Lord Helmawr. She'll be your Dramatis Personae house agent. She's going to cost you 200 credits. This is the fighter that's the normal fighter that was set during the time of the Aranthian Succession. She'll be an Outcast gang leader with a Mastermind archetype. She automatically comes with light carapace armor for a 4-up armor save, as well as a Refractor Field 2, which gives her a 4-up armor save against energy attacks. She also has a power sword as well as a power spear. She's also got the backstab skill, the dodge skill, as well as homing teleport special rule for her power spear, and she also has watch skulls which gives her 360-degree vision arc when she's fighting as well as doing a shooting. She's actually quite a deadly fighter just the way she is already, especially within close combat with that phase sword as well as that power shield, so she'll be doing a lot of the assaulting and fighting in your enemies in close range combat. Also included in this gang are Harlow 187 as well as Blaster Cogs. These are going to be your two Paladin companions, number 1 and 2. They're going to cost 250 credits apiece, meaning that the two fighters in total are going to cost 500 credits in your gang. Now they have layered flak armor as well as armored armor suits for a 4-up armor save with a 3-up save against blast template attacks. They have those powerful disintegration guns as their primary weapons, with stub guns as backup weapons. They're also packing manacles. They have the fearsome skill, the Overwatch skill as well, and they have the peerless bodyguards as well as Helmawr's protector special rules as well. In my opinion, you should probably use the Helmawr's protector special rule in order to protect Lady Haera, your leader, because in an Outcast gang, if your leader goes out of action or gets killed, it's game over for your gang. Now the rest of your credits are going to be spent on your Outcast Hive Scum, and these guys are not really all that greatly equipped just because we don't have very many credits to begin with. So that's why I went the narrative. These are like either household servants who've been forced into bodyguard duty, or they're just kind of like the lowest of the low mercenaries because of desperation. First of all, you have Arab the Watchman. He is an Outcast Hive Scum at 55 credits. He's got a last gun as well as a last pistol, kind of a basic shooting attack as well as close combat attack. We also have Lolly Boro, which is another Outcast Hive Scum at 55 credits. This fighter is carrying an auto gun as well as an auto pistol, so that way you can still do some pretty good rapid fire shooting within medium ranges. You can probably upgrade your weapons later on as well. And then we also have Enos the Shartrack, which is going to be another Outcast Hive Scum at 70 credits. This character is passing a shotgun with solid and scatter shot as well as an auto pistol, because shotguns are really great in this game. Your next fighter is going to be a character named Interrogator Jethro, who's going to be an Outcast Hive Scum at 60 credits. They're packing a stub gun and axe, which are just basic close combat shooting attacks, and they're also passing smoke grenades. And the reason why they have smoke grenades is that way they can run interference by protecting your Paladin companions as well as Lady Haera. They're kind of screening their approach by throwing out these smoke grenades to protect your more valuable fighters. And that's exactly the same thing which Militant Marika is going to do, which is your very last Outcast Hive Scum at 60 credits. This fighter is also packing a stub gun with a maul for close combat attack as well as smoke grenades, and they're doing exactly the same thing as Interrogator Jethro. And if you decide to take this out to the Ash Waste, you do get 400 credits for a vehicle, and your vehicle is going to be called Lord Helmwar's Revenge. It is a Guild of Coin Hauler that's going to cost you 400 credits. This character's got a Cargo 8 Ridge Hauler with a Munitorium armor container. It also has ablative armor, so in case if your body of your vehicle, the hull of the vehicle takes a non-glancing hit, makes it a little bit more survivable. We got Tire Claws as well as Always Staring to give you +2 handling on your handling checks. An Engine Shell to protect your engine from a first non-glancing hit, as well as a Nitro Burner to give you +1 movement allowance as well. And we're giving this vehicle headlights that we can see invisibility conditions. Now, the reason why, if you'll notice, this vehicle does not have any weapons on it, and that's because in the narrative of the Aranthian Secession, Lady Haera is trying to escape Hive Primus and try to make it out of there before the other noble houses or House Aranthis manages to kill her. So the way I vision this vehicle is that she's made some contact with the Guild of Coin. They gave her a souped up Cargo 8 Ridge Hauler to kind of protect her inside the Munitorium container so that they can ship her across the Ash Waste as quickly as possible, so that way she can survive and escape. So the next roster we're going to have is going to be the Blooded Decree once again, but this time this is set in the Underhells campaign. It is once again going to be a House Helmawr Outcast gang at 1,000 credits, and I'm going to be perfectly honest with you, there's not very many changes between this roster as well as the previous 1,000 roster that we looked at. There's only 2 real changes in this roster for the Underhells campaign. We're changing your leader, and we're also changing potentially the vehicle that you're using in the Underhells campaign, depending on whether you want to be a Mouse Train Allegiance or if you want to be an Archaeotech Hunter Allegiance. So that being said, let's talk about those changes. Like I mentioned before, the rosters are pretty much identical except for a few key changes. The first key change is which version of Lady Haera you're taking. Because we're playing in the Underhells campaign, we're taking Lady Haera and her Scythian hunting rig, which is the Spire hunting rig that she's actually taking. Once again, she's a Dramatis Personae House agent at 200 credits, Outcast gang leader with the Mastermind archetype. However, she has the Scythian hunting rig, which gives her a 5-up armor save as well as a 5-up ward save. She also has her phase sword as well as her power spear that do exactly the same thing as before, but now she has additional attacks with the paired Scythian claws that she can use in close combat. She also has Medusian projectors as well, which is a short-range, pistol-range shooting attack that can also paralyze your enemies as well. She's bringing a lot of kit with this character. Now she's got backstab skill as well as a dodge skill, and she now comes with the hurl skill because she's in the Spire hunting rig. She still has the homing teleport special rule attached to her spear. She also has watch skulls, which gives her 360-degree field of vision as well. But now she has the reflex enhancers ability, which allows her to activate twice, as well as the master of the hunt special rule for being a Spire hunter, and she also has the sibling rivalry special rule. Now the sibling rivalry special rule is not really going to come into effect for this game because you're an outcast gang, so you can't take other Spire hunters in your gang, so it's not going to really matter too much. But she does have the Lord Helmawr special rule, which means if you decide to take her in the Scythian hunting rig, you can't take the normal version. All right, this is her current state now, and that's what she's using. And like I said before, I would restrict to this version of Lady Haera only to Underhells campaigns if I was an arbitrator for a campaign for a player who wanted to use a Helmawr Outcast gang. And like I mentioned before, if you decide to play in the Underhells campaign, you want to take the Malstring allegiance for that. If you want to do that for this campaign, then you just simply take the previous 1,400 credit roster we talked about with the Paladin Enforcers, as well as with the Hive Scum, as well as a Gilded Coin Hauler for your vehicle. However, if you want to take the Archaeotech Hunter allegiance, what I suggest for you for your Abyssal Ferryman team is to take Magic Hellbane as well as the Grunt. These are the two Dramatis Personae Abyssal Ferrymen that are available for Hive Secundus. Magic Hellbane is a ferryman skipper with mesh armor, Archaeotech pistol, as well as a respirator. They have the dodge, evade, step aside, as well as the trick shot skill. So this character is a really great close combat fighter with that really powerful Archaeotech hunter pistol. And then you also have Lagrun, which is the Ogrin bodyguard, which is a ferryman rig hand. He's got light carapace armor, the hook, line, and sinker, which is a paired close combat attack with a respirator. They also got the crushing blow skill as well as the unstoppable skill. Now the reason why I would suggest you take this particular Dramatis Personae Abyssal Ferryman team is for two reasons. One, they have the Survivor Enclave special rule, which means you could use these guys for a medical escort mission once per week, so that if any of your fighters get injured, they can help you kind of bounce back by having like a road dock by being a Survivor Enclave. So valuable when you're actually in the Underhells campaign. And the other reason why I decided to take this is because they have the Chasing That High special rule, which means that these guys actually have the potential to stick around during the third phase of the campaign. They have a 50-50 chance of actually staying with you, which can help you a lot when you're facing down the various roaming horrors and other gangs of an Underhells campaign. Now, as for your vehicle, we're going to call this character Castiel the Oarsman, which is going to be a ferryman steersman. He's going to be your vehicle crew with a stub gun. We give this character the trick shot special rule so that way they can get a better shot with their mining laser. Once again, they're equipping their custom rig with a mining laser, a transport cage to protect your fighters, and because we have 5 credits left over, give it an easy turnover engine because you want to maximize what you can do with your vehicle. And these are the only real changes I recommend adding to your 1,400 credit roster from before and just modifying it to fit in the Underhells campaign. And since we're on the subject of the Underhells campaign, let's talk about your 1,250 credit starting rosters, because I know a lot of players and arbitrators are allowing gangs to start off at 1,250 credits for the Underhells campaign. It's starting to become like an unofficial rule that people are starting to do for the Underhells. So because of that, we're going to talk about exactly what kind of changes you include. Now, you're going to have the same leader and same vehicle recommendations as before, but because you have that additional 250 credit bump to your list, we're going to modify the equipment of your Outcast Hive Scum as well as give you a hangers on for your gang to make it a little bit more survivable. Now, the real changes for your gang comes into the way that your Outcast Hive Scum are equipped, okay? And the only difference really that we're adding to these guys is we're adding an additional fighter as well as some protection in terms of armor for your characters. So Arov the Watchman still has their last gun as well as the last pistol, but we're bumping their cost by turning credits by giving them layered flak armor. That way they got a 5-up armor save against normal shooting attacks and close combat attacks, as well as a 4-up armor save against blast template weapons. Highly suggest you get armor undersuit for your Outcast Hive Scum as soon as possible. Lolly Boro makes a return again with their auto gun auto pistol, once again upgraded with layered flak armor, and Enos the Shard Rack also makes a return as well with their shotgun auto pistol, but once again upgrading them with that layered flak armor. But now we're also adding an additional fighter this time. We have Nixt Eldrand, which is another Outcast Hive Scum at 90 credits. Now this fighter also has layered flak armor, packing a sawn-off shotgun this time so that we have a short-range shooting attack with your shotgun attack, and a chain sword to add additional hit with that close combat attack. Interrogator Jethro as well as Militant Milrika make a return as well. We're upgrading Interrogator Jethro this time as well as with Militant Milrika. And instead of carrying stub guns, Interrogator Jethro has a last pistol this time with axe and smoke grenades as well as layered flak armor. And Militant Milrika, she's going to be 85 credits as well. She traded in her stub gun for an auto pistol, still has a maul, still has smoke grenades, but we've also upgraded her with layered flak armor to make it a little bit more survivable. And the hangers on this gang is going to be the Grey College Surgeon, which is going to be a rogue doc. So that's going to be a nice way to kind of protect yourself, to give you some additional Medicore escort missions. They cost 50 credits. They're packing last pistol, Medicaid kit, Medicaid skill, as well as the patch up special rule as well. So that's what we're going to do that to kind of help you out. Now, if you decide to go with the Malstrain Allegiance instead of the Architect Hunter, once again, you'll still take Lord Helmawr's Revenge as your primary vehicle. It's kitted out exactly the same way in the Ash Waste list that we talked about earlier. But my suggestion, though, if you are going to play at House Helmawr Outcast gang, take the Survivor Enclave with Magic Hellbane as well as Legrun. That way you have 2 medical escort missions you can do per week if you need to, and at the same time have that really powerful fighters in your gang as well. Now, the very last roster we're going to talk about is playing the Blood Decree and the Aranthian Secession. So you're going to do it in part 1, 2, and 3 of that campaign setting. Once again, you're still playing a House Helmawr Outcast gang, but this time, though, because we're playing the Aranthian Secession, we're bumping your returning credits to 2,400 credits. And we're going to add some additional fighters to this roster to make it a little bit more survivable and more competitive on the tabletop as well. So once again, Lady Helmawr, the 13th daughter of Lord Helmawr, is going once again. Lady Haeras is going to be used for your leader, and this is the exact same house agent that we talked about earlier, without the Spire hunting rig. And the reason why is because in the narrative of the Aranthian Secession, she doesn't have it for all 3 parts of that campaign setting. So that's the reason why we're doing this. And she's going to be equipped exactly the same as before, still a Mastermind archetype for your gang. But because we have 2,400 credits to work with, we're now adding some Outcast Hive champions to your gang now, because now we have that ability to do so. The first one is Silas Gunner Plain. This is going to be an Outcast Hive champion, so it costs 230 credits, and this guy's going to take the mutant archetype for his archetype. Now that means he's going to also be packing a heavy stubber as well. He's also got a stub gun for a backup weapon, as well as photo goggles to see all invisibility conditions. Now, because he is a mutant archetype, he gets to choose a primary skill, which we're going to use Bulging Biceps, because Brawn is the primary skill set for mutant archetypes, and that's going to be really helpful because it removes the unwieldy trait from your heavy stubber, so that way you can move and shoot it like a basic action like every other weapon. So that Bulging Biceps could be really nice. And yes, you also get a free mutation as a mutant archetype. That's what the rules state. So we're going to take the Scaly Skin for this character, so that way they have a permanent 4-up armor save. Now, armor save is quite good. However, though, you cannot improve it later on, so that's the only armor that Silas Gunner Plain will ever have. Your second champion is going to be Danzigal of the Middens. It's going to be an Outcast Hive champion at 103 credits. She's going to be a weird archetype with layered flak armor for that 5-up armor save and 4-up armor save against blast template attacks. We're giving her a power maul for close combat, which is a great close combat weapon, as well as an auto-pistoled man-stopper rounds for that strength 4 rapid fire ability on those weapons. And we're giving her the divination, she's going to make her weird archetype with divination discipline as well. She's got future sight, and the reason why we're taking this discipline is for that future sight ability, so that way you can make any rerolls on dice that you might need. Unfortunately, you're an Outcast gang, so you're not going to do very well for a lot of your rolls, so having that future sight is going to really help leverage that. Now, granted, it's only once per battle, but you never know when that reroll is really going to come saving your life on the tabletop. And we're also taking this character, giving the Warp Whispers, and the reason why is because that way you get one additional fighter in a game, despite whatever crew size you have. You want to maximize the numbers you have on the tabletop because you are an Outcast gang and numbers are your friends, so we're going to actually use that to help you out. Plus, it kind of makes you have some bonuses in case you got to do any kind of sentry rules type special rules for scenarios. Once again, Harlow 187 and Blaster Cogs are 2 Pal Knight companions. They also make a return as well. 250 credits apiece. They're equipped exactly the same way in all the other lists, so nothing much has changed there. But your outcasts have changed considerably. So Heir of the Watch has now been upgraded to 135 credits. Still got the later flak armor, but we now upgraded their last skill with telescopic sight, so that way they get that short range modifier for their long range shots. They are still packing a last pistol for a backup weapon, but we're also giving them photo goggles to deal with the visibility conditions of the Aranthian Secession. Lolly Boro also makes a return as well at 135 credits. Still has a layered flak armor, but an auto go telescopic sight, so that they get that short range modifier for their long range shots. Still has the auto pistol for a backup weapon, and we also have photo goggles for this fighter, so that way you can see in all visibility conditions as well. Enos the Shard Rack as well as Next Aldrond also make a return as well. This time both of them are upgraded to 165 credits apiece. Enos still has their layered flak armor, their armored undersuit this time to give them a 3-up armor save, as well as a 4-up armor save against 3-up armor save against blast template attacks. Makes it a little bit more survivable with that 4-up armor save and 3-up armor save as well. Still packing a shotgun with solid scatter shot as well as an auto pistol, but now we're giving them smoke grenades to run interference for your gang, and we're giving them photo goggles to see in all visibility conditions. Next, Algerond is also upgraded to 165 credits, layered flak armor, armored undersuit as well, sawed-off shotgun with chain sword, still the smoke grenade, as well as upgrade with the photo goggles. Interrogator Jethro as well as Militant Marika also make a return, both upgrade to 145 credits. Interrogator Jethro still has layered flak armor and an armored undersuit for better survivability. They're packing last pistol and axe, but this time we've upgraded with blasting charges so that way they have a really powerful 5-inch template attack at strength 5 with 2 damage. Could be a really nice killer when that explosion goes off. They still also have smoke grenades as well, so that way they can still run interference for the rest of your gang. And the Militant Marika has also been upgraded 145 credits as well, still has layered flak armor, but this time with the armored undersuit. Still packing auto pistol with a maul, but we've also given her blasting charges this time in combination with smoke grenades, so that way she can screen advances or blow people up, depending on what she wants to do. And rounding out your gang, the Grey Collared Surgeon takes a return. Your Rogue Doc is going to be your hanger-on for this gang at 50 credits with Last Pistol Medicae Kit, Medicae Skill, as well as the Patch-Up Special Rule, just because you want to make sure your fighters stay alive in the Aranthian Succession. And once again, Lord Helmawr's Revenge makes a return again. Your Guild of Coin Hauler for 400 credits. Still a Cargo 8 Rich Hauler with Munitorum Armor Container, a Blade of Armor, Tire Claws, All-Wheel Steering, Engine Shell, Nitro Burner, as well as Headlights. And that's going to make up your 2,400 credit starting roster for the Aranthian Succession. So there you guys have it. Live out the final days of House Helmawr and your campaigns of Necromunda by playing a House Helmawr Outcast gang. I thought we were a pretty flexible list I've actually created with lots of options for your gang. And yes, I've made some kind of rule changes on some of the rules for things like the delegations for the Enforcer Bodyguards. And even though it's not official, I do believe that my assessment of these guys and the point values I've given them is quite fair considering the circumstances of how you're going to use them in the campaign as well. And of course, if you end up using this list, please let me know. I'd love to see exactly how this list worked out for you on the tabletop. Unfortunately, I don't really have the time right now to play a lot of games to test out my own builds, so if you end up using it, please let me know if it ended up working for you and what kind of things you would recommend and making changes to it to make it even better. And of course, once again, thank you again to Cameo Chris for giving me the idea to make this video. I was kind of like in a weird kind of writer's block situation where I didn't know what to make next for my content, so Cameo Chris kind of saved my life just now by recommending this, and I was like, yeah, why don't we play Helmawr gangs, and how would I do it? Got my brainstorming going on and really helped me to make this video. So thank you again, Cameo Chris, for the idea. And of course, just like Cameo Chris, if you guys have any suggestions, please put them down in the comment box down below, and if I like your idea, I'll make a video on it, and I'll also give you credit as well. So that's good for this video, you guys. I am Commander Cheapskate. I will catch you guys next one. Peace out, and stay classy.